I know James Cameron didn't direct this movie, he only produced and co-wrote it, but is there any chance that we don't have to wait an entire decade or longer for the next James Cameron project? Because I like his stuff, like, a lot. But whatever the case, this is Alita Battle Angel, which, as I mentioned, is produced and co-written by James Cameron, is directed by Robert Rodriguez, who's more well-known for stuff like Sin City, Desperado, Planet Terror as part of Grindhouse, Spy Kids, so he's done a lot of stuff. He was a producer on Predators, and this movie tells the story of this cybernetic girl named Alita who's brought back to life by Christoph Waltz. And she's getting adjusted to this post-apocalyptic world with a huge city that's just hovering above them like a UFO, as she soon starts to discover a little bit more about her past and realize that she's more than just a robot girl. So believe it or not, this is actually a movie that I've been looking forward to long before Avatar even came out. Because James Cameron is one of my top 3 favorite directors out there because of stuff like Terminator, Terminator 2, Aliens, The Abyss, and I do like Avatar quite a lot actually. And next to Avatar, this was the other project that he said he wanted to do, but it's just been in development hell for some time. So now we finally have it, and he's got a big hand in it, but it's being directed by Robert Rodriguez instead. And it just makes me wonder why. It just really doesn't feel like something that Robert Rodriguez would make. However, that's not so much a bad thing. I'm not putting down Robert Rodriguez at all. However, I gotta say that watching this movie and walking out, I felt like how a lot of people feel about Avatar, where it's a great looking movie, but it just feels so tired and generic. And I'll get into that, but first I want to talk about what's actually great about the movie. It's got a great opening and a great look to it, especially with Alita herself. Alita is played by Rosa Salazar, who has a really cool last name, and the movie plays out sort of like a science fiction version of Pinocchio, to the point where Alita has wooden arms and legs when she starts out, and she's just going around discovering the world and getting into all the situations that her surrogate father, played by Christoph Waltz, tells her not to be any part of. And it's a little cool setup for the rest of the movie, and Rosa Salazar is probably the best actor in the movie next to Christoph Waltz. She's the one that brings most of the heart and humanity to this movie, and even though most, if not all, of Alita is done through CGI, with the arms, legs, and those huge eyes, it looks so convincing that it just blends into the environment to the point where sometimes I even forgot she was a CG character. She just became a character. And Alita really is the best part of the movie. Another great thing about it is the cinematography and the 3D. I would imagine that this was shot in 3D, considering that James Cameron's such an advocate for films being shot in 3D and not converted. So it does look great in 3D. And it's very much like Avatar, where after a certain while you just forget that you're watching a 3D movie, and it just has a great look to it overall. And there's some little cool ideas scattered throughout this world and cool designs from some of the other cyborg characters that you just really wish that more attention was given to the script and the actual story, because this just doesn't have the same flair that a lot of other James Cameron projects do. I know a lot of people bash Avatar for being similar to Dances with Wolves or Ferngully or The Last Samurai, but what James Cameron did with Avatar was he created an entirely new world. The creatures are unique, the world is unique, it's got its own ecosystem, the Na'vi have their own language, so there's a lot of care and detail put into that world, even if the story itself is just all too familiar. With Alita here, not only is the story all too familiar, but the situations just feel too familiar as well. It feels like a majority of the young adult movies that have come out, and it's probably a little better than that because of production value, and it's got a more likable lead, but it has a forced romance in here that just doesn't really work a whole lot. And the kid that they have to play Alita's love interest, Hugo, he is so uncharismatic and so just terrible. He delivers his lines as if he's in a high school play. And who else is bad in this movie is Jennifer Connelly. She's a scientist who pops in here and there, and she works for the main villain of the movie, played by Mahershala Ali. And he's fine, but with Jennifer Connelly, not only can you tell what's gonna happen with her character, but she's just bad. She really does not look like she wants to be in this movie. And I know Jennifer Connelly is capable of being a great actress, and I'm just surprised that she just sleptwalked through this entire movie. And in terms of the script, it's got some bad dialogue here and there, but the biggest issue I have is that I didn't feel like anything got resolved by the time we got to the end of the movie. When it gets to the end of the movie, you just kind of feel like you watched a setup for another movie that, depending on the box office numbers, might or might not happen. And to be honest, I really don't see this movie making a whole lot of money. So they probably would have been better off just making a self-contained story rather than being overconfident and just set up the next sequel. Because at the very least with Avatar, even though I know people are hesitant about the fact we're getting 4 sequels that have been filmed back to back to back, but the first movie ended in a way where, you know what, that was a good movie where it is. It was a fun story. And if there's not another one, then I'm okay with it. It ends in a place where there really doesn't need to be another one, where with this movie, it feels like there has to be another one because it's open-ended. So in the end, I think Alita is okay. Like I said before, this is the movie that made me understand why people call Avatar boring or generic or cliched, because while it's a great-looking movie, there's just not a whole lot of substance. The action scenes are fun, but not super imaginative. It has a lot of cliches that we've seen in other movies, not just within the young adult genre. And in terms of it being a manga adaptation, I think it's one of the most high-profile ones, and it's the best-looking one. It's definitely a better movie than Ghost in the Shell, because there's nothing about this movie that specifically screams this would have worked if it had a Japanese cast. Because with Ghost in the Shell, the more you watch that movie, the more you realize that movie depends on its lead actress being Japanese and not Scarlett Johansson. And I just didn't really feel that with Alita Battle Angel. There was never a point where I found myself bored out of my mind, but at the same time, I was just never impressed. I'd say watch at your own risk. And it's a weird thing for me to say because technically it's not a good movie, but if you are going to see this movie, I feel like the only way to see it is in 3D because it's really good, but everything else is just kinda messy. This is actually the perfect movie if you have AMC A-List because they allow you to see 3D movies, so you could just use that subscription to see this without having to pay the surcharge to see a movie that's kind of mediocre in 3D. And that's my review for Alita Battle Angel. Now I want to hear what you guys have to say. If you've seen the movie, what did you think? Were you excited for this movie? Did you like it? Do you feel the same way I feel? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and of course leave a comment. Don't forget to support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.